There's nothing better than that amazing feeling of finishing university, accomplishing something, and stepping into the adult world. But wait, what about student loans? It's no doubt that a huge number of students in Ontario, Canada, where I am right now, rely on government-aided student loans to help them finance their education. In fact, as of a study from 2015, almost 1 in 2 people had some sort of student loan, and 75% of those students had loans backed by the government, which in Canada or specifically in Ontario, would be OSAP. On top of that, the average student debt as of 2015 was around $28,000 per person, which is a significant amount, and when you start working, you now have to pay that money back. And just like everything in our government, the process can be a little confusing. So fear not, because I took the liberty to go and explore it myself, and I'm going to come back to you with what I learned and how you can make the process of setting up and paying back your student loans easier and better. So make sure to keep watching, as I will show you the exact portal that you have to sign in order to pay back your student loans. And spoiler alert, it's definitely not the OSAP portal. It's something completely different, so I'll walk you through it if you just watch through. Before we start, let's look at some important details that you need to know about your student loan. And the number one thing you want to know is your repayment period and when your repayment period actually starts. So typically, the non-repayment period is 6 months after your date of graduation. So for those 6 months, you don't have to pay back your student loans. But keep in mind, during that 6-month period, interest still accumulates, but you do not have to pay a cent towards your student loans, and no one's forcing you to pay money. So the whole idea there is that you have 6 months to kind of, get your ground together, figure out what you're doing with your life, whether you're working, looking for a job, or whether you want to go back to school. So you have that 6-month grace period in order to figure that out. Repayment begins at the end of these 6 months. So for example, if you graduate, like a lot of people do in Canada and Ontario, if you graduate in April, that means you start paying back your student loans in November or the end of November. And that's kind of the typical path, because like I said, most people graduate in that time frame. Next up, we'll look at the amount owing, which is the big number you want to watch out for. Now keep in mind, there's 2 components here in Ontario. One would be your federal or national student loan, but there's also a provincial student loan as well. And they divide this based on a variety of different factors, and you would know if you log into the portal and you can see what portion of your loan is the federal loan and what portion is the provincial loan. So the reason that these are different is that provincial and federal loans have different interest rates that apply. So the interest rate for the federal portion is just the prime rate. The prime rate is essentially the interest rate that is set by the federal government based on a variety of different factors that we definitely do not want to get into. But essentially all you need to know is that this rate is the rate that is going to apply to your federal portion of your student loan. And then when it comes to the provincial portion here in Ontario, because we're talking about OSAP, the interest rate for that is the prime rate plus another 1%. So if the prime rate is 2.5%, the interest rate that you're being charged on your Ontario student loan would be 3.5%, 2.5 plus 1. So there is a bit of a silver lining here, as since April 2021, the federal portion of the student loan actually has 0% interest. That means no interest charge whatsoever until, I believe, 2023, which is honestly quite a big deal, because this means that you basically have no cost of borrowing money and it's free money, although you do have to pay it back eventually. So before we jump into the second part of the video, which is exploring the student loan portal and kind of going into the details on how to actually pay it back, I want to remind you that if you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, drop a comment down below. It really helps out the channel, and I appreciate you watching. So now to one of the most important parts, how do you actually go about paying your loan? So the website here is a little bit different than what you may be used to, as throughout university, the osap.gov.ontario website is the one that's the go-to. But in this case, it's actually the National Student Loan Service Center. A bit of a mouthful. Essentially, what you want to do to get here is straight up just Google the National Student Loan Center. And once you do so, it would be the top list. It's like a bit of a weird URL. So the URL is csnpe-nslsc.canada.ca/home. I'll link it down in the description below. Once you get to the homepage, it'll give you an overview of what to expect and kind of some quick pointers and tips that might be helpful. Now, if it is your first time, you might have to register for an account. It's a pretty simple process. All you'll have to do is just provide your SIN number and a couple of other things, and you'll be on your way. So once you click login, you'll see that there's a couple ways to sign in. I just prefer to use my bank account as it's linked to the government websites. And once you sign in, you'll be presented with a page that gives you an overview of the type of student loan you have and some useful information. And now, if you're going to be signing in approximately 6 months after your graduation, you will get a pop-up with a message that will walk you through an interactive guide on how to set up your student loan payment processes. Really intuitive, and I highly recommend doing that, as it'll be an easy way to kind of go about doing so. But what we're interested in over here is looking at the loan as a whole. So if we open up details for the student loan, we can see information like what type of loan it is. So whether it's a national loan or a provincial loan, or how much is on each, and the interest rates as well. So as you can see, for my loan over here, it's only a federal loan, which means that until 2023, I have to pay no interest, which is amazing. And a lot of you will be in the same boat as well. Once you have an idea of that, you can scroll over to the right, and if you click one of these sections, you'll see a section which is kind of a payment calculator. This is a very useful tool, as over here you can use an interactive slider to kind of come up with a customized payment plan. So you can go from anything from like the minimum to paying it off in like 2 payments. Default amount that shows up is 12.5 years, and the frequency is monthly. You can't really change the frequency, but you can change the amount of money that you want to give per month. There is a minimum threshold, and it would depend on your student loan. But once again, the average time is around 12.5 years. So once you click calculate, and if you're happy with the terms, you can click next, and it will kind of lock that in as your new form of paying back the student loan. So once you have everything set up, which is the amount you want to pay per month, and like basically how long you want to pay the student loan off, and your banking information, you'll be good to go, and it will just be taken out of your account on a monthly basis. I've dropped some links in the description down below, which are some tips on how to go about navigating the portal, and it's kind of a walkthrough of everything I just went through as well. So that's it for navigating the student loan portal and kind of everything you need to know, but there are some bonus tips that I'd like to share. And one is being able to extend your repayment period past the 6 months. So there are certain circumstances where you may be able to do so. And I believe some of them include, if you're doing volunteer work, or if you're in the army, or if you can show that you have like a financial struggle. There are some options that could apply to you. That could help you with either extending the payment period or kind of a lower payment amount. So there's a lot of different things that are there to help you. And once again, there's a link in the description to help you with that. And lastly, I thought I'd share my personal opinion and view on how long I'll be taking to pay back my student loans. So as I mentioned, currently there's no interest rates on federal loans. And so what my perspective is that I will try to drag this out as long as possible and pay the lowest amount. This is for a couple of reasons. One is it's essentially like free money, not really, but it's free in the sense that I'm not paying any interest on it. So I'm not losing by just having that money as a loan. And the second part is that with that money that I now have, I can invest it and make a higher return and over the same period of time. So essentially through investing, I could make money off of the money I got from student loans and pay it back gradually. There are some people who like to pay it off and be debt-free, but I think this really depends on what your goals are. For me, it's not important to be debt-free in that sense, where I don't think a student loan will impact me that much in the next couple of years. But if I did know that I wanted to buy a house, for example, or if I wanted to get approval for a mortgage, then I may just pay it off. But right now, I don't really mind having debt. Debt is not a bad thing. Like a lot of people make it seem like debt. Some form of debt is, manageable, and could be a smart move. Don't quote me on this. I'm definitely not an expert in this area, but that's just my personal opinion. All right, so with that, we have come to the conclusion of this video. If you stuck around till the end, I really appreciate it. Thanks for watching all the way through. Please make sure to like this video, leave a comment down below, ask any questions you may have, and reach out to me wherever you can find me. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.